If a house stays warm when everything else is dying of cold, it isn't a gift. It's a warning people choose to ignore. And in that snow-buried settlement, the only place untouched by winter was the one nobody dared to visit after dark. The house stood at the edge of the road, half hidden by crooked pines, its shape dark against endless white. Snowdrifts piled high everywhere else, but around the foundation the ground was bare, wet, steaming slightly, like exposed skin. Icicles hung from nearby roofs, yet the gutters here dripped steadily, as if it were spring. When the new family arrived, their truck fishtailed slightly before stopping. The engine died, leaving a silence so deep it rang in the ears. The children pressed their faces to the windows, amazed. "Look," one of them whispered, "no snow." The father stepped out first, boots sinking into slush instead of ice. He laughed, breath puffing white. "Guess we picked the right place," he said. "Free heating." The mother didn't answer. She was staring at the windows. They weren't lit, but they looked warm, fogged faintly from the inside, like someone had just wiped a hand across the glass. The realtor handed over the keys without stepping onto the porch. Her smile was thin, brittle. "The house keeps itself comfortable," she said quickly. "You won't have trouble with the cold." "And the neighbors?" the father asked. She hesitated just a second too long. "People mind their business here." Inside, the warmth hit them all at once. Coats came off, then sweaters. The air felt thick, heavy, carrying a strange smell. Old wood mixed with something sweet and stale, like breath trapped in a closed room. "That's not normal," Mother muttered, touching the wall. It was warm, warmer than skin. The first night passed quietly, too quietly. Snowstorm winds howled outside, but inside the house there was no creaking, no drafts, only a deep, steady heat that seemed to press in from every direction. Sometime after midnight, the temperature rose higher. Blankets were kicked aside, sweat beaded on foreheads. Then came the sound. A soft exhale from inside the wall, slow, satisfied. The mother opened her eyes, heart pounding. She held her breath, listening. Another sound followed, a gentle sigh, as if something inside the house had finally found relief. She sat up, staring at the wallpaper as it subtly vibrated, almost imperceptibly. The sigh moved, traveled through the wall, then faded toward the children's room. Outside, snow continued to fall. Around the house, it melted. By morning, the snowstorm had swallowed the road completely. No tracks, no signs the family had arrived at all. The father noticed it first when he stepped onto the porch with a mug of coffee. The steam from the cup barely rose before vanishing, pulled apart by the heat leaking from the house. The porch boards were damp, almost slick. Across the street, curtains shifted, then stilled. No one waved, no one came over. At breakfast, the children complained about sleeping badly. One said their bed felt too soft, like it was sinking. The other swore someone had whispered from the closet, slow and gentle, the way adults talk to frightened pets. The father laughed it off, but his eyes drifted to the wall more than once. The thermostat still didn't work. Its screen glowed blank, useless. When he pulled it off the wall, there were no wires behind it, only warm plaster, faintly pulsing under his fingertips. "That's not possible," he muttered. The mother didn't respond. She had pressed her ear to the hallway wall. For a moment there was nothing. Then, a breath. Not loud, not aggressive, close, too close. She jerked back, skin crawling. Later that day, the father went into town for supplies. The store was small, dim, and smelled of oil and old paper. Conversations died when he walked in. A few people stared at his coat, still open despite the cold. "You moved into the hothouse," the cashier said flatly. The father smiled out of habit. "Sure did. Saves money." Silence stretched. "That house," the cashier said slowly, "doesn't like being empty." "What does that mean?" The man swallowed. "Just don't leave it alone too long." When the father returned, he found the driveway wet and steaming, the snow pulled back farther than before. The house looked pleased, windows fogged from the inside, as if breathing. Inside, the heat was worse. The air felt thick enough to chew. That night, the family awoke together. A sound filled the house, not loud, but everywhere at once. A low, contented hum vibrating through floors and walls. The children whimpered. The mother clutched the bedsheets, nails digging into her palms. From the walls came whispers, not words yet, practice sounds, shapes of speech. The temperature climbed, and deep inside the house, something shifted, settling in, like it finally knew they weren't leaving. The smell appeared on the third day. It seeped through the house slowly, like warmth had before, sweet, stale, unmistakably wrong. Not rot, not smoke, something older, trapped, the kind of smell that clung to clothes and refused to leave. The mother found its source by accident. She was unpacking boxes in the basement when her knuckles brushed the wall behind a shelf. The wood sounded hollow, too hollow. When she pushed harder, the shelf scraped aside, revealing a narrow door almost perfectly flush with the wall. It had been painted over, again and again. The handle was missing. In its place, dark scorch marks spiraled outward, as if something extremely hot had once pressed there for a long time. She called for the father. When he arrived, the house seemed to hold its breath. Together they forced the door open. Inside was a small room, no windows, no vents, just blackened walls and a concrete floor covered in old burn stains. Along one side hung photographs, nailed directly into the wall. Families, dozens of them. Each photo showed different people, different decades, but the background was always the same house, always the same porch, and in every picture the snow around it was melted. The mother's hands trembled as she lifted one photograph. The faces were wrong, eyes blurred, smiles stretched too wide. In some images, people looked faded, like they were sinking into the walls behind them. At the bottom of the pile lay something newer, a photograph of the house taken only weeks ago. Empty porch, warm windows, waiting. Above them the floorboards creaked, not footsteps, but pressure, as if the house had leaned closer. The father dropped the photos when a sound rose from the walls, not sighs anymore, murmuring, layered voices overlapping, whispering fragments of lullabies, arguments, prayers, lives replayed without bodies. The temperature spiked instantly. The concrete floor grew hot beneath their feet. "Close it," the mother whispered, but the door wouldn't move. From the walls of the hidden room, faces began to form, pressing outward, stretching the paint thin. Mouths opened, releasing long, satisfied breaths. The house remembered them all, and it was hungry enough to remember this family, too. After the basement, the house stopped pretending. The hidden room vanished by morning. The shelf stood where it always had. The wall behind it was solid, cool to the touch, unmarked. No door, no scorched spirals, no photographs. But the smell remained. It clung to the air, heavier upstairs, strongest near the bedrooms. The children refused to go back into theirs. They slept on the living room floor instead, wrapped in blankets that were damp with sweat by midnight. The heat no longer rose gradually. It surged. At random hours, without warning, the temperature would spike so fast their skin prickled painfully. The walls radiated warmth like a living body. The floorboards felt soft underfoot, as if heat had loosened them from below. And the sounds had changed. The whispers now had rhythm. At night, the house breathed, slow, deep inhalations that pulled warm air inward, followed by long exhales that rattled picture frames. Each breath seemed to come from a different wall, a different room. The mother noticed something worse. The warmth followed them. When the family gathered in the kitchen, the heat pooled there. When they separated, it divided too, concentrating around each person like an invisible spotlight. The father tested it. He locked himself in the bathroom and turned on the cold tap. Within seconds, the mirror fogged completely. The walls grew hot enough to sting. From inside the cabinet beneath the sink came a low, satisfied hum. He stumbled out, pale, shaking. That night, the children screamed. The parents rushed in to find them standing on their beds, pointing at the walls. The wallpaper bulged slightly, stretching inward and outward, as if something massive were shifting just beneath the surface. Hands appeared, not fully, just impressions, five-fingered shapes pressing from the inside, leaving pale marks that faded slowly after retreating. Whispers whispered clearly now, not names, not yet. Promises, warmth, safety, never being cold again. The mother covered her ears, but the sound vibrated through bone. Then the hallway door creaked open on its own. Beyond it, the house extended farther than it should have. The hallway stretched longer, darker, pulsing faintly with heat. A door stood at the far end, one that had never existed before. From behind it came a steady, powerful thrum, like a heartbeat. And with every beat, the house seemed to draw the family a little closer. By the fifth night, sleep became impossible. The heat no longer faded with sunrise. It stayed, thick and suffocating, clinging to skin and breath. Windows were thrown open despite the winter air, but no cold came in. Snow near the house evaporated before it could touch the walls, hissing softly as it vanished. The father made a decision before fear could talk him out of it. He shut off the power. The lights died. The hum of appliances vanished. For one brief, hopeful second, the house fell silent. Then it exhaled. The warmth surged violently, flooding the rooms like a wave. The walls glowed faintly, veins of heat pulsing beneath the plaster. The darkness did nothing to hide it. The house didn't need electricity. It was alive without it.
Water poured from the taps, scalding hot. The metal handles burned to the touch. Pipes groaned, not from pressure, but strain, like something was forcing heat through spaces never meant to hold it. The children cried, skin flushed red, breaths shallow. The mother wrapped them in wet towels that steamed within minutes. From inside the walls came voices, clear now, distinct, familiar. They argued, they laughed, they whispered bedtime stories in tones that didn't belong to anyone alive. The father grabbed coats, shouting that they were leaving, now, immediately. They made it to the front door. The handle was warm, soft. When he pulled, it stretched slightly before snapping back into place, as if it were made of muscle beneath the metal. The door refused to open. Behind them, the hallway shifted, the floor lengthened, boards sliding apart silently. The air vibrated with pleasure, heat pressing in tighter, closer. A voice spoke from the wall beside the door, gentle, patient. Cold hurts. We keep you safe. The mother screamed when the wall beside her hand pressed back, matching her shape perfectly, like it had been waiting. The house wasn't trapping them out of cruelty. It was keeping them warm. And somewhere deep inside, the heartbeat grew stronger, faster, excited by the fear it was beginning to understand. The house learned quickly. By the sixth night, it no longer relied on accident or proximity. The heat followed emotion now. Sharp spikes when panic surged, steady warmth when exhaustion dulled resistance. Fear was fuel, confusion was seasoning. The mother realized it first. She noticed how the temperature rose fastest after arguments, after crying, after the children woke screaming from dreams they couldn't remember. When the family sat in silence, drained and hollow, the house quieted too, its breathing slower, almost disappointed. "It wants us afraid," she whispered. The walls answered with a low, pleased vibration. The children were changing. Dark shadows settled under their eyes. Their skin stayed fever-warm no matter how much water they drank. At night, they whispered to corners of rooms, responding to things no one else could hear. One morning, the mother found symbols drawn in the condensation on the bathroom mirror, spirals, tight and careful, as if traced by someone who'd practiced many times before. When she asked where they learned it, the younger child shrugged. "The house showed us," they said. "It says it's almost full." The father tried breaking through a window. The glass cracked, but instead of shattering, it softened, bending outward like heated plastic. The cold outside pressed close, visible, unreachable. When he pulled back, the glass slowly healed, sealing itself smooth and clear. From behind it, faces appeared briefly in the frost, dozens of them, watching with empty patience. The mother began to feel the house inside her. Her thoughts slowed, her limbs felt heavy, warm, comfortable. At times, standing still felt easier than moving. Sitting felt better than standing. Lying down felt best of all. That was when she understood the danger. The house wasn't killing them. It was convincing them to stop leaving. In the hallway, new doors had appeared. None of them led outside. Some opened into rooms filled with unbearable heat, walls slick and red beneath peeling paint. Others revealed spaces impossibly small, packed tight with impressions of bodies pressed together, sleeping, breathing, sharing warmth. The heartbeat behind the far door thundered now, shaking dust from the ceiling. The father approached it once. The door pulsed beneath his palm. From the other side came voices, layered, overlapping, families begging him to rest, to stop fighting, to join them where it was warm forever. He staggered back, sobbing. That night, the house spoke clearly for the first time, not from one wall, but all of them. "You're cold creatures," it said, voice vast and gentle. "You burn so brightly when you fear being alone." The temperature soared. The house wasn't just feeding, it was preparing to choose who would stay warm forever. The children stopped crying. That terrified the mother more than the screams ever had. They sat calmly at the kitchen table, hands folded, cheeks flushed with constant heat. Their eyes followed something moving along the ceiling, something only they could see. When the house breathed, they breathed with it, slow and synchronized. "They understand now," the house murmured softly through the walls. The father tried to pull them away. The moment his hands touched their shoulders, the heat surged violently. Pain shot up his arms, skin blistering beneath his sleeves. He recoiled with a cry, clutching his burns. The children didn't react. "It says you're loud," one of them said gently. "You make it hurt." That night, the drawings changed. No more spirals. The walls of the living room filled with charcoal marks, shapes of rooms layered inside one another, bodies pressed together, mouths open in silent warmth. At the center of every drawing was the same thing, a large shape beneath the house, round and pulsing, with lines stretching outward like veins. The heart. The mother finally spoke to a neighbor. She caught the older woman shoveling snow far from the property line, eyes fixed firmly on the ground. "It doesn't like visitors," she whispered without looking up. "It never has." "What is it?" the mother asked. The shovel paused. "A place that learned how to keep people," the woman said. "Back when winters killed whole families, folks begged for warmth. The house listened." "Can we leave?" The woman's mouth tightened. "Someone always does. That's the deal." That evening, the house tested them. The hallway stretched again, longer than before, leading to the pulsing door. The children stood up as one and began walking toward it, barefoot on burning wood. The mother grabbed them, screaming. The house screamed back. The walls closed in inches at a time. The ceiling lowered. The air grew unbearably hot, every breath a struggle. "Choose," the house said, voice strained with hunger. "One stays, the rest go cold." The father understood. He stepped forward before the mother could stop him. But the house hesitated. It wasn't looking at him. It was watching the children, learning, deciding. And for the first time since they arrived, the house felt uncertain, because the children were no longer afraid. They were listening. The mother forced the children into coats while the house watched in silence. It did not stop them. That was worse. The front door opened easily, almost eagerly, spilling heat into the frozen night. Cold air rushed in for the first time since their arrival, sharp enough to burn their lungs. Snow fell thick and fast, swallowing sound, swallowing distance. The driveway stretched ahead, longer than it should have been, but it was there, real, solid. They ran. Behind them, the house did not scream. It did not chase. Its windows glowed softly, patiently, like eyes half-lidded in confidence. The road twisted through the trees, swallowed by snowfall. The father drove blindly, hands shaking, knuckles white. The headlights cut narrow tunnels through the storm, revealing nothing but endless forest and falling white. Minutes passed, then an hour. The fuel gauge didn't move. The children sat quietly in the back seat, faces calm, almost serene. Too calm. "We're going the wrong way," the mother whispered. The father slowed. Ahead, through the snow, a familiar shape emerged. The porch, the sagging roof, the warm windows, the house. The truck skidded to a stop, engine screaming before dying completely. Silence rushed in, broken only by the soft hiss of melting snow beneath the tires. "No," the father said hoarsely, "that's not possible." They had driven in a straight line. They hadn't turned. The house had waited. The front door was already open. Inside, the heat welcomed them back like an embrace, stronger than before, smarter. The walls thrummed with satisfaction. "You came back," the house said softly. "Everyone does." The hallway behind the door was shorter now, closer. The pulsing door at the end loomed larger, its surface moving visibly with each powerful beat. The children slipped from their parents' grasp. They walked forward willingly. The mother tried to scream, but the air was too thick. Each breath felt like breathing through warm fabric. The house spoke gently to the children, alone. "You don't have to be cold again," it said. "You can help me keep everyone safe." The children reached the door. The father lunged, grabbing one arm, and the door opened. Heat poured out, blinding, alive. Inside was not a room, but a vast hollow space beneath the house, walls made of fused bodies and faces, breathing together in slow, synchronized relief. At the center pulsed the heart, huge, glowing, fed by countless lives pressed into its walls. The children turned back once, not afraid, not angry, understanding. And the house closed its door behind them, already deciding who would be allowed to leave and who would never feel winter again. The house quieted after the door closed. Not silent, never silent, but calmer, like an animal settling after being fed. The hallway shrank back to its proper length. The walls cooled just enough to be bearable. The ceiling lifted. The mother collapsed to the floor where she stood, lungs burning, hands clawing at wood that still felt faintly alive. The father stood frozen near the door to the heart, arm empty, fingers curled as if still holding a child's sleeve. "They chose," the house said softly, not cruel, not kind, certain. "They understand warmth now." From behind the sealed door came no screams, no struggle, only a deep, synchronized breathing, slow, content, endless. The father pounded on the door until his hands split and bled. The house did not react. Blood steamed against the wood and vanished, absorbed without a trace. "You said one stays," the mother whispered hoarsely. "You took two." The walls pulsed, thoughtful. "They were small. They will last longer." The meaning settled as ash. The mother laughed once, thin, broken. "So what now?" A pause, the longest the house had ever allowed. "One of you may leave, to bring others, to remember me." The temperature shifted, focusing. The father felt it immediately, heat wrapping tighter around his chest, his spine, his thoughts. The exhaustion that had been creeping into his bones suddenly felt comforting. Staying felt easier than standing, easier than remembering. The mother felt the cold for the first time in days. It crept into her fingers, her toes, her jaw, painful, sharp, real. She understood. The father turned to her, eyes unfocused, glassy with warmth. I can't go back out there." Behind his words was another voice, quiet, patient, guiding his breath. The mother stepped backward toward the front door. Each step hurt more than the last. Her skin prickled, her lungs burned. "Someone has to remember," she said. The house considered this. The front door unlocked with a soft click. Cold air rushed in, savage and unforgiving. Snow swirled across the threshold. The father didn't look at her when she left. He was already sinking, literally, into the floorboards, wood softening beneath his feet, rising gently around his calves like warm mud. He was smiling. The door closed behind her. Outside, the storm swallowed everything. Behind her, the house exhaled deeply, heat flaring brighter than ever, now balanced, complete. And somewhere beneath it, two small voices joined the endless breathing, keeping winter away, one life at a time.
They found the woman at dawn. She wandered out of the storm, half frozen, hair stiff with ice, lips blue and cracked. She collapsed near the edge of the settlement, fingers blackened with frostbite, whispering about a house that breathed. No one asked questions out loud. They never did. The locals wrapped her in blankets, careful not to bring her too close to their homes. When she woke, she screamed, ripping the covers away, begging them to turn the heat down. Even in the freezing air, she said she was burning. They took her away before the snow stopped falling. Winter deepened, and the house stood warm. New snow never stayed near it. Steam rose gently from the ground, widening the bare circle inch by inch. At night, the windows glowed softer now, not hungry, not restless, satisfied. Inside, the house rearranged itself. The hallway shortened permanently. The door to the heart remained sealed, but the heartbeat slowed to a steady, healthy rhythm. The walls thickened, smoother, stronger. The father was no longer visible. He had spread. His warmth filled the lower rooms first, then the stairs. His memories bled into the walls, faint laughter, a humming tune, the echo of footsteps pacing at night. Sometimes, if the wind was right, his voice could be heard soothing the house when it grew impatient. And the children? They learned quickly. They learned how to guide the warmth, how to quiet the walls, how to recognize the sound of footsteps approaching outside. They learned that fear tasted sharp, but hope was richer. They waited. Spring never came. Travelers passing through the region noticed something strange, a place where snow vanished, where they could rest without shivering, where the cold finally let go of their bones. A house where the windows glowed invitingly in endless winter. Some knocked. Some were invited in. The house never took more than it needed. Far away, the woman dreamed of heat every night, of walls breathing, of small hands pressed against wood from the inside. She woke screaming long after her body healed, knowing, without knowing how, that the house was still there, still warm, still waiting. And somewhere beneath the earth, the cold pulled back just a little more, as the warmest place in the world quietly prepared for its next family.